Hello guys, Bean here, and I'm back with another Reddit video, and today I'm doing r/AskReddit, and I have the funniest stories of kids growing up. If you guys like the video, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, as I put a lot of effort into it, so make sure to watch the whole thing, and let's get right into the video. As a toddler, every time I go into an area that would echo even the slightest, i.e. hotels, large restaurants, malls, I would moo at the top of my lungs. That earned me the unflattering nickname Meggy Moo Moo. When I was 3 or 4, my dad and I were at the barber shop. An elderly man, a friend of the family, was waiting for a haircut, and he and I was talking. I think I was sitting on his lap. He has a big nose with a wart on it. I suddenly said, "You got a big nose like a witch." My dad says he could have crawled under a chair and died, but the old man just laughed and said, "Ho ho, I guess I do, don't I?" Was at the pharmacy when my oldest, 3 at the time, saw an ancient old man walk by. Very loudly he questioned, "Why does his face look like that?" Very wrinkly and sunken in. The man gets very close to my son's face and whispers, "This is what happens when you don't listen to your mommy." At around 3 years old, I got curious about my dog's food, so I sat myself down in front of her food bowl and just started stuffing my face with it. After a few minutes, my mom, struggling to keep a straight face, asked me if I would like to go with the rest of the family to get McDonald's or if I wanted to keep eating dog food. I looked at her, cheeks stuffed with dry dog food, and said, "Dog food." 18 years later, I still remember what dog food tastes like and still crave it occasionally because life's weird like that. Though I never actually eaten it again. Liar. When I was younger, my mum, my grandma and I went to get some ice cream, but the unattentive little 3-year-old that I was, I let the ice cream fall. My mum bought me another cone, handed it to me carefully and said, "Keep your eye on the ice cream." And I did. I face planted right into the ice cream. Ice cream. Had a brain freeze moment. When puberty reared its ugly head, I started calling phone sex lines. First just the 800 numbers, the voices drove me crazy. But always asked for credit cards, so I got bored quickly. Then I discovered 900 numbers. Stupid teenage me used a fake name and just assumed when they sent their bill, my parents should see the name of someone who didn't live there and toss the mail out. Little did I know, it was being charged directly to our telephone bill. Fast forward to next billing cycle and suddenly I'm being yelled at for a 1k plus phone bill. Over the years, they typically like to bring it up in conversation when I'm introducing them to a woman I'm seeing. It's been 20 years and they've never let me live it down. My brother did this exact same thing in high school. We were poor and my single mother was furious. She yelled at my brother for hours and then sent us to bed. We shared a room. After a few minutes, she decided she wasn't done yelling and came back for round 2. I remember laying in a dark room with my mother standing in the doorway. Her last words were, "Do I need to stand there and talk dirty shit to you while you fall asleep?" I responded before my brother and said, "You better say no." My mother closed the door after that and later told me she was choking back laughter. Luckily, the phone company dropped the bill when she told them it was a minor who made the calls. My brother-in-law called the 900 numbers when he was a teenager. My mother-in-law called to fight the charges because they didn't show up as quote porn calls but as long distance charges, and she didn't know what they were. The nice lady on the phone company explained that they were hot numbers. My French as a first language mother-in-law didn't quite get the meaning. The look on my mother-in-law's face when the phone lady asked, "Do you have any teenager boys in the house?" was just absolutely priceless. She asked them to block those numbers and brother-in-law had to pay the bill. I was 11 years old and stayed home from school because I was sick. I'm admittedly a huge hypochondriac, so what better to do on my day off than to hop on WebMD and find out why I'm so sick. After 5 minutes of research, I had pinned it down to one thing: that it absolutely had to be ovarian cancer. I called up my mum, who's a nurse, and told her the devastating news. I was met with hysterical laughter. There I am, sitting in my bed, heartbroken that my own mother is laughing at my inevitable demise. And that's the day I found out that men don't get ovarian cancer. I wasn't expecting that ending. I needed a cup for baseball during elementary school, and the default one was too big and uncomfortable for my crotch. I proceeded to measure said region and report my findings to my mother so she could buy the appropriate size nut protector for me to wear while playing catcher. Needed a cup for karate practice in the 3rd grade, was handed one by my instructor and told to change into it in the bathroom. Came out wearing it backwards with the cup part on my arse. Guess I thought it was an emergency poops. I'm imagining a kid getting kicked in the nuts, falling to the ground, pooping himself with the poop going clearly in the cup and going, yep, it works like a charm. Was the cup half full or half empty? Lol, aren't you a curious little fella, eh? I was playing around in our front yard when I was around 3 years old. While my parents were on the front porch reading newspapers together, off in the distance they heard me say, "Hey hey kitty kitty, such a pretty kitty." At first they ignored me and just kept reading together, I guess thinking I was just using my imagination or something. Eventually my mum glanced over at me and immediately proceeded to scream at me. I quickly dropped a dead possum covered in ants and began crying because my mum yelled at me. They got my eyes checked after that. There was nothing wrong with them. I was just a very confused little 3-year-old. So, my son was in Cub Scouts and was eager to become a Boy Scout. So he would come in all the time asking me what he needed to do to become a Boy Scout. One day, out of frustration, I tell him the joke that I heard as a kid. How does a Cub Scout become a Boy Scout? He eats his first brownie. For those of you who don't know, a brownie is pre-Girl Scouts, same idea as Cub Scout. Well, that's the last I heard of it for a few weeks. I forgot all about it. Then, one night at a Cub Scout meeting with several different troops present, the head person asked the crowd if anyone knew what they had to do to become a Boy Scout. Well, most of them had that deer stuck in headlights look going on, but not my son. He is waving his hand in the air like a madman. They call him up and says to 100 parents, kids, and troop leaders, "My daddy told me all I have to do is eat a brownie to become a Boy Scout." Funniest memory with my son. Not me, but my little brother. When he was 3/4, my dad was on the bus with him to visit his gran. He noticed a bald black guy and said very loudly, "Dad, that man has a Malteser head." The guy heard him and started laughing. That's hilarious. If someone doesn't know what a Malteser is, it's basically a spear covered in chocolate. That perfect shiny chocolate. We watched Kindergarten Cop on TV one afternoon. That evening, in perhaps my first attempt to reference anything, I tried to repeat the "boys have penises, girls have vaginas" line. What I actually said was "boys have penises and girls have tupies." I don't know. My old man was dying, laughing. He called family members and shit. "You gotta hear what so much coffee just said. Hand to God, that's what he said." I'd see my brother standing up to pee, so I tried to give it a shot. When I was 3 or 4, lost control, started screaming, "Ah!" Pee went everywhere like an out of control firehouse. Ooh. There was nothing my parents could do but watch and get the popcorn and wait for it to be over. I was in a public bus once with my mum and dad. I think I was maybe 4 years old at the time, and I turned around to the people sitting behind us and asked, "Do your mummy and daddy do naked cuddles too?" It's one of my mum's favourite stories to tell people. About 4 years old, my mum made cookies and told me she had counted them so she would know if I tried to sneak one. So I drew cookies on a piece of paper, cut them out, and replaced 3 of the real cookies with what I thought were my very convincing fake cookies, and squirreled away in my room with my prize.